If you're a car fan, then one of the members of the top 10 legendary vehicles will be the Citroën DS. This is probably why Citroën span off that model name as an entire brand called DS. And now we have here the DS first electric car, the DS3 Crossback E-Tense. But is it really worthy of that DS heritage? But before we tell you about the DS3, if you like this video, please don't forget to comment, like it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yes, this is another crossover. It is a popular car format with consumers, but the taller stance also makes it a good choice for accommodating batteries. The DS3 is a little bit wider and longer than a Peugeot E208 or Vauxhall Corsa E, for example, but it's quite a lot taller. Nowhere near as large as the Peugeot E2008 though. I'm making these comparisons because yes, you guessed it, the DS3 is a car from Stellantis, so it has the same motor and battery combination as pretty much everything else from that group. In other words, it has 136 HP and 50 kWh battery. At least Stellantis is getting its money's worth out of this powertrain. Although the motor and battery are uniform across the DS3 E-Tense range, there are 5 trim levels available. All cars have rear parking sensors, automatic wipers, electric folding mirrors, and rear tinted windows. They also all have the safety pack, which includes a generous selection of modern safety technologies. The standard wheels are 17-inch. The Performance line adds a nicer cloth interior. The Performance line Plus upgrades the wheels to 18-inch and adds matrix LED lights, keyless entry, and the connected navigation system with a larger touchscreen. There is quite a wide range of colours available with 9 different options, plus the ability to have a different coloured roof with some choices. These range in price from £550 to £750. Pearlescent paints are £850 or £950. There are 3 different 17-inch wheel options and 6 different 18-inch wheels. Upgrading from 17-inch to 18-inch wheels costs between £450 and £650, and on cars that already have 18-inch wheels, choosing a different design will be between £100 and £200. In other words, there's an almost bewildering number of options to choose from, and we haven't even started to talk about the interior options. On that note, all the cars from Performance line upward have keyless entry, so when you walk close, the handles just present themselves to you and you can just open the door. Let's have a look inside. The DS3's interior is very clearly a French idea of what's classy, some of which you might agree with and some of which you might not. The diamond motifs liberally placed everywhere could float your boat, or you might find them a little tacky. Either way, the finish is a bit too plasticky for our taste. As is a top of the range car, the seats are leather, and you can choose this in light grey or black. You'll see the stitching and moulding on our car is also quite intricate. That's because these are the £950 Opera upgrade. These seats are really very comfortable, and there's lots of headroom as well, so if you're well over 6 feet, you'll probably be okay in this car. Even at the top of the range, adjustment is mechanical. It's a surprise when a car costs close to £40,000 doesn't have any electrical adjustment, which appears to be another £500 optional extra. So you've got a fair bit of space in this central area, a couple of cup holders. There's this flap here which has a small cubby in it and the kind of thing for keeping your change in, which is nice. You'll notice that there's a USB port and a 12-volt port here for attaching something. You also have this space at the front here which is decent size for putting even quite a large phone. However, you'll notice that my phone didn't start charging there because this isn't a wireless charger. That is a £200 extra option, which this car doesn't have. However, there is another USB port here, so you could charge your phone if it's lying here. The rear seats are quite comfortable too. Decent amount of headroom. You'll notice that my knees are almost up against the rear of the seat in front, so it's not absolutely brilliant. I'm average size, so that's okay, but if I was 6'2", I'd probably be cramped in the back of this car. This central seat is probably a little bit wider than some. However, it doesn't have anything you can pull forward, so if you only have 2 passengers in the back, there's no armrest for them or cup holders. There are magazine holders here for your kids to put their copies of One Piece or whatever it is kids read these days. However, there are no rear air conditioning vents and no rear USB ports. However, there is this little thing here for kids to put a very small copy of One Piece in. There are ISOFIX points, which you can get to by unzipping this, for the 2 outer rear seats, and another set of ISOFIX points on the front. The more observant viewer may notice there's something missing at the back here. Yep, there is actually no button to open this boot. You have to actually get the key and use that. Press that and then it opens. Then you can just pull it open. This boot is not as big as you'd expect for a crossover. It's actually 350 litres as standard. There's a very, very small extra piece underneath here, which is going to be hard to get to. If I just lift that up, you can see that's got a little bit of toolage in there and a kit for inflating your tyre. However, this is only slightly more than your average hatchback. So if you remove the small ledge, you can then drop the two rear seats down in a typical 40-60 arrangement. Now this is not that big either. This is 1,050 litres, which is actually a bit less even than, for example, the Peugeot E208 or Vauxhall Corsa E. You'll also notice there is a bit of a ledge. It'll be good enough for big shopping trips. I mean, I transported a friend's stuff to his new house and filled this up and it was fine, but it's, you know, it could perhaps have been a bit bigger for a crossover car. For example, Citroen's EC4 is bigger both with the seats up and with them down. However, that does make it really obvious that this car is one generation back from the EC4, which is a brand new design. With that typical 50 kilowatt hour Stellantis battery, as you'd expect, the range is very similar as well. The maximum is 206 miles WLTP, and if you have larger wheels, it goes down to 193 miles. If you open this, you'll see there's the typical charge port, CCS. There's DC charging up to 100 kilowatts, which can put an 80% charge into the car in 30 minutes. On a 7 kilowatt AC wall box, a full charge will take around 7.5 hours. All trim levels offer 11 kilowatt charging. We could probably do with a slightly better catch on this charging port. There we go, finally got it. So despite that mediocre range, the fast charging means you probably could use this for longer journeys. However, we did notice that when you're driving along a motorway at 70 miles an hour, the range drops noticeably more quickly than when you're trogging around town. As a result, this car is better suited for commuting and short local travel. It's reasonably economical. On a 14p per kilowatt hour supply, it's 3.4p per mile. You also get, when you buy this car, 6 months of free subscription to Polar Plus, which means that you get discounted rates when you're charging a BP Pulse Network charger. So you get a fairly conventional steering wheel. You've got some nice large buttons. So you've got volume controls, you've got voice control, a dial here. This is for phone, and this is for choosing your source of your music. There's a conventional windscreen wiper stalk on this side, and another conventional stalk for the lights and indicators. And tucked under here is cruise control, but this is just ordinary cruise control, not adaptive. So you'll notice this central console is rather awash with buttons. Let's start with this gear stick light lever. So this is the one that you'll find familiar from Corsa E, E208. It's not entirely intuitive. You have to actually press this button to do anything. Press forward for reverse, backwards for drive. If you just press forward or backwards without pressing the button, you'll get a neutral. If you pull back again when you're in drive mode, you get B mode, extra regenerative braking. Then there's a P button for choosing park. Another leftover from petrol and diesel is this, a separate electronic parking brake. We're not really sure why you need one of these on an electric car. And this rocker here is for selecting the power mode, so you'll have normal, eco and sport modes that you can select with this button. The final thing you'll notice here is there's actually 6 extra buttons, and that's because these ones are for the windows. It's really unusual to have these in the center. Some Saabs have that, but not many other cars do. So that's not really very intuitive, and that continues with these buttons in the center. It is good to have a set of discrete buttons, but they're not entirely responsive. If you press them, it doesn't always happen straight away. You do have one for volume control, but they're quite slow. You have a few separate ones for the front and rear demisters, which is good, and a few for the air conditioning, but not everything can be operated on the air conditioning with these buttons. The rest have to go to the LCD panel, which we'll talk about in a second. All these cars have keyless starting, so you actually have to push your foot on the brake and push this button, and it turns itself on. And this car has a head-up display, which is an optional extra. It's quite a good head-up display as well, because it's pretty clear, and it includes the speed that you're doing and some stuff about lane avoidance. However, if you don't have that option, you do have quite a decent LCD panel, and there's a bunch of different functions here. You can choose to have navigation, you can have other things up there, you know, like if I choose driving, for example, you can see that's a icon of the car. Personally, I rather like having the navigation up there because it makes it easier to see where you're going. The basic cars have a 7-inch media and nav screen, but from the Performance Line Plus and above, it's this 10-inch unit. You can upgrade the 7-inch unit to the 10-inch unit for £700, which also adds the connected sat-nav. I must admit, I don't particularly like the sat-nav screen. If you switch to night mode, it becomes almost invisible. It's really, really hard to see anything on that screen. So much better to have it on the day mode. Even then though, it's very grey and monochromatic. Another thing we're not entirely pleased about is this DAB radio. You can see the default screen makes it very hard to tune between stations. Should really be a list because that's much easier to navigate. Why they did it this way, no idea. There's lots of other options. You can look at different settings for your car. We talked about the air conditioning. If you click on that, you can choose this. It looks like it's multi-zone, but it doesn't actually appear to be. You can choose the temperature here, change the fan speed here, and you could also actually select which way the air is going as well. Overall, this is really unnecessarily complex. That's the charge mode, which gives you statistics about charging, and you can also set a timer for charging. If you press this button, you get connected apps and vehicle apps. And one last thing to talk about is the phone. Where has that gone? Okay, so you can connect a Bluetooth phone, but one thing you don't have here is CarPlay or Android Auto. Bit of an odd omission in a modern car. We were lent this car by subscription service On2, so we've had a whole month to really get to know it. It's quite pleasant and hassle-free to drive. Certainly as a city runabout, it does the job pretty well. Like Citroën cars and Peugeot cars with this Stellantis drivetrain, DS has downplayed the performance a little bit compared to Vauxhall. This car takes 8.7 seconds to reach 62 miles per hour, and the top speed is 93 miles per hour. However, it does feel faster when it's at normal city speeds. The suspension is quite soft, making it comfortable enough for pootling around town. There is some sense of torque steer, as with every front-wheel drive electric car, but this engine is not so powerful as to make it rather disturbing. The DS3 does feel solid enough at motorway speeds, but the range does drop noticeably when you're going at that kind of performance. We wouldn't recommend doing more than about 125 miles between stops if you're doing a journey on a motorway. The cornering isn't exactly involving. This car is clearly set up for comfort over performance. A lot of what the DS brand is about appears to be bling, but it's also reassuring that it takes safety seriously as well. All cars come with some form of emergency braking, lane keep assist and lane departure warning. The advanced safety pack is standard on the Ultra Prestige and a £400 extra on other trim options. This adds extended versions of emergency braking and lane keep assist, as well as blind spot detection. Our Ultra Prestige car does have front parking sensors and a rear parking camera as standard. These can be added to Prestige and Performance line models for £450 extra and £250 on other models. DS appears to have been caught out by the government's changes in the plug-in grant benefit. The Performance line Plus is over £37,000. Unfortunately, that makes the DS3 Crossback E-Tense seem rather expensive. Bear in mind that the Kia e-Niro and Hyundai Kona Electric offer nearly 100 miles more range for similar money. With On2, you can get this car for £529 a month, which isn't too bad. The On2 package includes 1,000 miles of charging a month, insurance, service and maintenance. In fact, pretty much everything is included in the price, nothing more to pay. Overall, while the DS3 does give you a lot of kit for your money, the value isn't great. Sister company Citroën gives you much more for your money with the recently released EC4. Taking everything into consideration, the On2 bundle represents very good value, but we're just not sure that the DS3 is the right option. So is the DS3 Crossback E-Tense worthy of that DS heritage? Not really. Where the original Citroën DS was a legendary vehicle, this is basically the same Stellantis drivetrain in a frilly frock. It's not a bad car, and if you like choosing lots of different options, you'll have great fun specifying this DS3. The top trim levels are well equipped, but they're also rather overpriced. We suggest if you've got 32 grand, try going for the Citroën EC4. It's got more space inside, it's similarly well equipped, and it has the same drivetrain. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it, comment about it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.